This, I'd like to introduce Bob Daniel.
You can, there's just some of them, you can take them out of the bag and pass them around if you want to. I would show you from the very beginning. You start with something that looks like that, or, you know, it's the piece you want to make the bracelet out of, glued to a sacrificial piece, okay? And tonight, this is the piece you're going to make a bracelet out, and that's a piece of scrap poplar, and that's oak that were just scraps in the shop. That's a 2x6 that was, you know, a chunk of 2x6. The other pieces are, you know, a mixture. You can do whatever you want to, you know, anything will work. I would say, just before we start, you can pass that around just so people can see where you start. I know Bob uses pine for that. For my sacrificial piece where I'm going to make the jam chuck out of, I like poplar myself because it's hard but yet it's soft. Where pine, I find, I mean, I use it, but I just find it's harder to get the jam chuck to get stuff to stick to it. So, but it's whatever scraps you have, okay? I would say probably anything other than plywood. Then here'd be like the next step, you know, after, you know, you rough sawed on a bandsaw, and then I've turned it down to a round, okay? There's probably the next step, and if you're lucky, you don't have a crack in it like that one does, okay? Then the next step on the jam chuck is, you know, just this is a sacrificial piece that was on here that I use, and you'll see that after a bit. And you'll notice, as if you look at it, and I'll point it out to you maybe more when we get there, but if I remember, is on the jam chuck itself, I like to make little grooves in it, and I do that just with a parting tool. And the reason I do it is I think it goes on a little better, stays a little better, but also when you're trying to get it just to that last little bit, it's easier to see how much you're taking off if you got the grooves. So you can look at that as you go around. And this is what you do when you don't stop on the jam chuck in time. All right. So what we'll do here is I'll start. I'm at the second or third step here. I rounded it because everybody knows how to make a piece round, I think. And so it's on there, it's on a sacrificial piece. The piece is round, so I don't have to beat myself to death. Next thing, how big do you want it? You know, and you can make them any size, depending on the size of the wood you have. The biggest sellers, biggest giveaways, and I'll say I give away probably more than I sell, but is about 2.5 to 2 5/8 inch. But I make them down to, you know, 2 1/4 for kids and up to 3, you know, depending on how big somebody's, this part of their hand is, you know. Well, you women know that. I didn't know that. Okay. So first thing you do is, you know, find the center, then measure out however far you want it to be, and to minimize time. We'll just say there. Okay, so that's going to be about 2 3/4 inch. Okay. Since it's already round, I mean, do that. What I want to do is take the inside out, the third step there that's going around. Okay. And the way I do it is with a parting tool, and usually I'm making a bunch of them, so I'm making all different sizes, so the exact size doesn't really matter that much. But if I'm making it for someone and I know the exact size they want, what I will do is take the parting tool and come in just inside the line, okay? Because on this, you're always going to get a little tear out on the end grain. And, and then I'll go in with, you know, rougher parting tool and take the, and then I'll show you. I'll run down with this finer parting tool just to skim it and minimize, hopefully minimize sanding, okay? So the first thing we'll do is take the center out. Oh, somebody wanted to know how I did this, okay? Well, you can see some of the one that's going around, it's just glued up different block. I glued up a block for like the one you have, Dan, and the big one that's going around. And I usually glue them up in a block that's like 4 by 4 by 12. Okay, and to minimize, I set them at an angle as I'm, you know, 45 or 30 degree, whatever, and then glue them, and then just put them on the chop saw or miter saw and saw them however wide I want them. You know, some are down to 3/4, some are 1 1/4 inch, depending on how wide a bracelet you want to make. And so when you're doing them like the first one that's going around, you can make them any width you want. This one is made out of wood that was already planed, you know, from Hicksville, and I think that's Babinga, and that's zebra wood. And then there's just a little veneer in there, you know, and this one's got yellow, could have been blue or green, whatever color you have. Okay, now when I do these, I just do them on a bandsaw. I you know, got this board that's 4 inches thick, or 4 by 1, 1 by 4, 1 by 4 say, and I just kind of mark it at an angle and run it through the bandsaw. And I use, you know, a long board. I don't do the 4 inch. I use a board that's just going to take off pieces. Okay, and so when I saw this, I get one that's, well, two pieces are angled. Of course, you're just sawing it in half at an angle. The 4 inch piece. Okay, so I take that and you can just put a piece in, or you can put a veneer in there, or 2 different kinds of wood, whatever you want to do. However you do it. And then somebody said, well, how do you get it flat? Well, you don't have to worry too much about that, because, well, I don't know how you are on a bandsaw. My bandsaw, I go like this, okay? So neither side is flat. But when I use in a board that's already been planed, the one side is flat, you know, so one side, the angled side is not flat. So I take those that are flat, just turn them around and glue them together, okay? Then after it's dried, I just take and look at which side is the least rough, lay it on the big belt sander, and sand it down flat enough to glue it. The other side doesn't matter, because you're going to take it off anyway, you know, so you only have to worry about flattening the one side. Okay, so that's how this one is done. It's just on a bandsaw to cut those pieces.
right here.
Okay, first thing I do, well, when I'm at this point, is just go in there with the parting tool. And you know you're through to the sacrificial piece, well, when it changes color like that, but usually you can feel it because the glue is so much harder than anything else, and you know you'll know when you go through, so you don't have to worry about when am I through or when am I going to be through. And it doesn't matter particularly anyway, as long as you're through a ways. So just cut the edge, then I take the center out with I use this small scraper. It's just the easiest thing for me, because it doesn't really matter. It's just to get rid of the wood. Can you see that? What and you can see it on the one that's going around, that's about to this stage. I usually go into there about a 1/4 inch or so, just to make it easier on your fingers when you're sanding in there, so that you can sand the whole inside but not have to worry about getting right out to the end. Then at this point, because this was flat, I usually check, again, it's not all that important, but I check to try to make sure it's parallel through the thing, because you'll wander as you go through. And I just use this little tool here and put it on the edge here and slide it in and see how close to parallel it is. And that's pretty close. Close enough anyway. Next step, I just take this small parting tool and just run, just to kind of skim it, to take any tear out or minimize tear out. Get rid of that sharp corner. Sand the inside. And I start with eighth of a sheet, and I have them laid out in packs so that I don't have to sort. And I usually start with 80 and go to about 800. Actually, here I missed a step. The step I missed was after I get the inside done before I do any sanding, I get the outside, now I come back to the outside and take it down to the thickness of the bracelet that I want. And I usually take it down to between 3/16 and a quarter, because you take it much more than that, then it gets awfully weak, particularly when you're doing the glued up stuff. Or even the solid pieces, you get to the end grain and it's going to be weak. I guess that's enough on that. That's about where it is. Okay. Now let's go back to sanding. Start over on it. It's better if you got air to keep that clean. Okay, so much for that. Now, next thing is
Is this the size of lathe you usually use?
yeah, one just like this. I mean, you could do it on a big lathe. It's just that actually it's the only thing I use my little lathe for is to make bracelets. Well, in small boxes. Is put a finish on. There's all kinds. This is just a friction polish, but it's you know, this is myelin friction polish, but there's all kinds, you know, that you can buy. And I don't know that one's any better than any other. The reason I use this rather than what Bob Robinson showed me how to make these, what he uses is it's a can and it's narrower, and usually half of it would be on the floor because I would knock it over. I don't know how many times I'd knock it over, you know, and so it was very expensive when you pour half of it on the floor on a regular basis.
You can't knock that over.
Well, you can, but it's a little harder. You know, I mean, it's a lot bigger bottom on it. So. I usually just give it 2 coats, unless I have some problem, have to go back and resand, then I, you know, do more, but I usually only give it 2. Now, I don't know how much you can see on the inside is now done. And as I'm doing this, I mean, basically the outside, the top or the outside of the bracelet is also done, but I only do as much over the lip as, you know, I can get by with, just a little bit. I used to try to do, you know, as much as I could, but then I found when I come back to sand it, after I put it on the chuck, that I'd have so many scratch marks that I'd work and work and work to get out. So now, now I only just get it around enough so that on the jam chuck it's cleared the jam chuck. Okay. Next step is to just part it off. Now, you know, everybody know a jam chuck, just going to turn it around and make it to jam it back on there, okay? Well, and everybody knows what happens now when you have this much trouble getting it to fit. Should be good. Now, all I want to do is just finish this edge here, and because it's sharp, round that just a little bit, sand that, take where a little bit of the poplar that's on here yet, take that off, and just round that just a little bit, and then finish sanding. I should say at this point, two things here I didn't point out. If you notice on that, those two that are, where it's just the sacrificial piece going around, that there were the grooves in there, and then there was a little edge there. You don't need to do that. I do that because when you come to putting a finish on, it's nice not to be buttoned right up against this part of your sacrificial piece. And I like to leave this part of the sacrificial piece pretty high, okay? Because I don't know what you probably didn't notice it, but when I'm sanding the outside of this, I sand up against that, and that helps me not to run the sandpaper over into where it's already finished sanding, and this will wear down as I'm sanding down, and so you'll taper it. It'll go a little bit more each time, but it'll be the finer grits, and so I don't have nearly as much trouble with the sanding marks, doing it that way, using this as something to bring your sandpaper off of. I don't know whether you see that like that. You hit that with the sandpaper. It just helps me, you know, because I'm not kind of shaky sometimes. Okay. It's here where that little lip that's inside there helps you get right up, you know, get over and not be wearing against the block so much. You bugger. And this is something you shouldn't have to do. Well, we're gonna call that good enough. Well, that's not great, but but I got it when it slipped off. I put it on too thick, and then it slipped off, and then I had to resand it. And that, when you resand them, for me, that stuff is so hard. I just never get a very good job on the resanding, so it's not nice and smooth like the ones that came around the bag are.
And you talk about the friction polish.
The friction polish? Yeah. Did I, or didn't you hear?
Polish is hard.
Oh, yeah, the friction polish is hard stuff. It really is. I mean,
Hold that where we can see it on the...
on the camera?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He can move it, I think. There.
Hold it still. Still.
I'm gonna hold it still.
Yeah, he doesn't...
Well, where do you want me? There.
Everybody else can see it there, but I can't.
Oh, okay. Where do you want it?
Just hold it still.
All right, I'll hold it still.
All right, thank you, Bob.
All right. Well, this one, you shouldn't look at this one. You look at the other ones. It's not finished as good because when it came off and I had to redo it and then resand it, and it's just that friction polish is hard stuff. I don't know what makes it so hard, but it is. And and at home, I mean, usually we have a bowl of them sitting by the front door for people that come, and it's sort of a going away, when they leave. And people root through that bowl of these things, and I've never seen a ding on any of them. Even they turn them over and root through them, and
Do you have the prices on them, the ones laying by your door? The ones you handed around have prices on them. You leave the prices on them for...
oh, no, those, well, actually, those, I wouldn't have had those except they came back from a place, a shop that had them in Carlisle, and she wasn't selling very many, and she said, well, you can just take them back. So I just picked them up the other day, and the tags were still on them. Is that what you're saying? Oh, yeah.
Screw it, sir.
You turn your tendon on your jam chuck, okay?
Yeah.
You say you groove it. What do you just take your parting tool and turn it on its side?
No, actually, well, I don't know if you can see this. The way I grind my parting tools, I don't grind them square. I always grind them so one side's longer than the other.
Okay.
I don't know. Can you see that? Can you see? If I hold it still, can you see that?
Yep.
So it's at an angle. So I got a sharp point. So that's what I used to go in there with, is the long point. And
But it's more of a flat jab instead of coming in 90 degrees and going inside it, where you just have a very sharp.
yeah, it's you should be able to see what happened to those that are going right. Oh, okay. Yeah, see, like this one, if you look at it, here's the little ridge that I was talking about that I like to have on there to come up again. But look at there. See, that was just done with the edge of the point of.
Go in on an angle.
Yeah, I'm going in at an angle. I'm sorry.
Straight, okay.
I'm sorry. Oh, hold it up, and hold it still. Oops. Okay. So yeah, it's going in. I'm going in at an angle to just put the point in, and so that leaves these grooves. And then when I, take it off, I can gauge by the depth of that, how much I'm taking off. Because if you leave it flat, I see the shavings come off or the dust, but I don't know how much is that really, And even then, I end up doing this, Yeah.
Friction polish available anywhere?
Friction polish? All the woodworking catalogs have it. I don't know whether like Lowe's or someplace has it. I've never looked in Lowe's. I don't know. Penn State, well, yeah, any of Woodcraft, Packard, all of those places.
Anybody have any other questions?
All right. Thank you.